I suspected my roommate Chloe was envious of the good fortune I'd been having lately, so she must have secretly taken my good luck charm, likely thinking she could claim my good luck for herself. What she didn't know was that I was born with an extraordinary amount of bad luck, a condition that made me prone to constant trouble and misfortune. All the positive experiences I was having were not my own. I had purchased them from a supernatural source, the ghost world. Tampering with a ghost transaction is a serious offense, one that invites malevolent spirits to come and collect the debt. I woke up with a start, my hand instinctively going to my neck, only to find the space empty. The necklace was gone. A cold sweat spread across my skin as I threw back my covers and searched my bed frantically. When it became clear that it was nowhere in my immediate bedding, I pulled back my bed curtain with a sharp tug and asked more forcefully than I intended, "Has anyone seen my necklace?" My sudden outburst was unusual, as I am generally a very calm and reserved person. My roommates were visibly startled by my tone. Chloe, from her bed, rolled her eyes and let out an annoyed sigh. "What is your problem, Amelia? Nobody wants any of your cheap junk." Megan, another roommate, quickly added her support for Chloe. "Seriously, what could a person with no money like you possibly own that anyone would want to take?" Sophie, our fourth roommate, simply shook her head and quietly said that she had not seen it. This necklace was more than just jewelry to me. It was a lifeline, a protective talisman I had worn without fail ever since I was a young child, only ever removing it when I showered. I had a clear memory of feeling it around my neck as I went to sleep the previous night, and now it had simply vanished. I looked at each of my three roommates, my gaze cold and steady, and I spoke slowly, making sure each word was clear. "I don't really care which one of you took it, but I suggest you return it to me as soon as possible. Don't come crying to me later if you find yourself in trouble, because I am warning you now." Chloe slammed her eyebrow pencil down on her desk, crossed her arms, and retorted dismissively, "If you think one of us stole it, then you should call the police and have them arrest all of us." Megan scoffed at the idea. Call the police? For one of her worthless little trinkets? The police wouldn't even bother to file a report for something like that. Sophie, meanwhile, just hunched her shoulders and remained silent. Based on their reactions, I had a very clear idea of what had happened. Since none of them were willing to admit to taking it, I saw no point in arguing further. I simply pulled my bed curtain shut again. I had given them a fair warning. If they were determined to head toward their own ruin, there was nothing more I could do to stop them. The following day, Chloe was acting as she usually did, showing off a new designer bag in our dorm room. Unlike the counterfeit bags she typically carried, this one was an authentic Louis Vuitton from the latest spring collection. "Chloe, you bought another new bag," Megan said, her voice full of admiration. "I'm so jealous. You must have so much money to spend. When will I ever be able to afford a real Louis Vuitton?" "Some things are just a matter of birthright," Chloe said. Then she deliberately glanced in my direction. "You either have it from the day you're born, or you never will." Megan immediately picked up on the cue. Exactly. Some people have ambitions far beyond their station, but have absolutely nothing to show for it. They can't stand to see other people succeeding, so they resort to spreading rumors and making false accusations about people stealing their things. "All right now, we're all roommates here. There's no need to be so harsh," Chloe said, feigning magnanimity. She seemed to be in an exceptionally good mood, and in a rare display of generosity, she selected one of her previously used bags from her closet and handed it to Megan. "Since you like Louis Vuitton bags so much, you can have this one. I only used it a few times for school, so I hope you don't mind." Megan's hands trembled with excitement as she accepted the bag. She thanked Chloe profusely before carefully storing it away, clearly overjoyed by the gift. Chloe and I did not have a good relationship, so I was surprised when she approached me next and, in a patronizing tone, offered me a bag as well. I didn't even look up from what I was doing, simply stating in a calm voice, "You can keep it. I don't have any need for it." Chloe was clearly not expecting such a direct rejection and looked as if she was about to get angry, but Megan, seeing an opportunity, quickly took the bag from her hand and began to flatter her. "Chloe, since Amelia doesn't want it, would it be all right if I had it instead?" Chloe shot me a glare for being unappreciative before telling Megan haughtily that she could do whatever she wanted with it. Both Megan and Sophie came from ordinary middle-class families, and their knowledge of luxury brands was mostly limited to recognizing famous logos. Seeing Chloe with a Chanel bag one day and a Louis Vuitton the next, they naturally assumed she came from a wealthy family. Only I was aware of the truth that Chloe was actually a low income student from a rural town. I had once accidentally seen her submitting a financial aid application when I was delivering some documents to the student union office. She had mistakenly assumed I was there for the same reason. In the beginning, when she first started showing off her supposed wealth in our dorm, she was worried that I would expose her secret. But as time went on and I remained silent, she concluded that I was simply weak and became even more bold in her behavior. I had never wanted to cause problems for anyone, but I had never imagined she would go so far as to steal from me, especially not something as critical as the charm that was meant to protect my life. I am the only child of the family that owns the My Group. My ancestors had built their initial fortune through some questionable and shadowy business dealings, and the negative consequences of their actions fell upon their descendants. The men in the My family line have always had great difficulty producing children. My father and mother were married for 20 years without being able to conceive. After they had sought out medical help from every possible source, I was finally born when my father was 50 years old. As the sole heir to our family, I was cherished and doted on from the moment I was born. Yet, despite being cared for by a team of professional nannies and nutritionists who planned my every meal, I remained a sickly child who was constantly prone to accidents. When I was 3 years old, a sudden high fever nearly took my life. My grandfather sensed that something was deeply wrong and immediately summoned a Taoist priest to perform a rite to exorcise any evil spirits. The priest took one look at me, pale and frail in my bed, and shook his head repeatedly. His only words were, "This child was born to bear the misfortunes of others. You will not be able to keep her." My mother nearly collapsed upon hearing his words. She held me tightly, knelt on the floor, and begged the Taoist priest to find a way to save my life. Finally, after my entire family pleaded with him, the priest relented. He gave me a protective charm, a necklace, and explained that on the 15th day of every month, precisely at midnight, I could use it to summon a ghost messenger. Through this messenger, I could purchase good luck. $10,000 would buy 1 point of good luck, and as long as my luck score remained above 60, I could live a normal and healthy life like anyone else. To ensure his precious daughter could grow up in good health, my father worked relentlessly over the years. He transformed our small family business into a publicly traded company in just a few short years. Last year, our company even made it onto the Fortune 500 list. Now, incredibly wealthy, my father became very generous. He not only spent a large sum of money every month to keep my luck score at its maximum level, but he also funded the construction of roads and bridges and donated heavily to various charities to accumulate good karma on my behalf. Thanks to all of this, I have grown up without any major illnesses or injuries, and I have even experienced more good fortune than the average person. Even with this protection, I have always been very careful to live a quiet life and avoid trouble. My natural life force is weak, and even with purchased good luck, I am far more fragile than other people. I simply did not expect that even by keeping such a low profile, I would still become a target for someone's greed. Watching Chloe, who seemed to be enjoying an incredible streak of luck lately, I began to feel a sense of unease. While my own luck had been consistently good over the years, it usually manifested in small ways, like winning a top prize in a supermarket raffle or managing to get the last pastry I wanted from the bakery. But ever since my necklace disappeared, Chloe had started buying lottery tickets obsessively. At first, she won small amounts, just a few $100s here and there, but today she had hit a major jackpot of $200,000. Chloe clutched the winning ticket in her hand, her face flushed with excitement as she grabbed her bag, ready to go and cash it in. Even though we were not on good terms, we were still roommates, and I couldn't in good conscience stand by and watch her walk into a disaster for the sake of money. In a rare moment of intervention, I reached out and put a hand on her arm to stop her. "Chloe, I'm giving you one last warning. You shouldn't touch money that doesn't belong to you." Chloe reacted by protectively hugging her bag closer and shoving me away forcefully. "Amelia, I'm warning you. Mind your own business." With that, she ran out of the dorm, her excitement overriding everything else. I rubbed the shoulder she had bumped into and sighed. There was nothing more I could do. You cannot save someone who is determined to destroy themselves. After Chloe collected her winnings, she lavishly booked a ballroom at a five-star hotel and invited everyone to a celebratory dinner. I refused the invitation immediately. I considered telling Megan and Sophie not to go either, but when I remembered how they had consistently treated me, I decided to keep my mouth shut. The ghost world operates on a different set of principles than the human world. It places the highest value on integrity and honoring debts. The Taoist priest had been very specific in his warning. A ghost messenger must never have a debt go unpaid, or else evil spirits would be dispatched to haunt the debtor, leading them to eternal damnation. Chloe had used up a significant amount of luck, and there was no way she would be able to pay for it. When the ghost messenger became enraged, even those who had benefited from her stolen luck would likely face consequences. In the days that followed, Chloe was rarely in the dorm, coming and going at all hours. Whenever she did return, she was always carrying large shopping bags filled with new purchases. Seeing all the luxury brand items, I knew that the $200,000 she had won was probably already gone. Soon, it was the 15th of the month again. At midnight, the ghost messenger arrived as scheduled to collect his payment. Having been my contact for over 10 years, he smoothly materialized at my bedside. But he noticed something was wrong. He didn't smell the familiar soul-calling incense that I always burned. "What's happened? The necklace is not on you," he observed. I explained the whole situation to him, telling him how my necklace had been stolen. The ghost messenger scratched his head, uncertain of who he was supposed to collect the debt from now. He informed me that he would have to report the matter to the Ghost King and would return the next day. The following night, a piercing scream cut through the silence of our dorm room. Megan fumbled for the light switch, and when the room was illuminated, we saw Chloe curled up in her bed, frantically pulling at her own hair and screaming in terror, "Ah, ghost, what money? I don't have any money. Go away." "Chloe, what's wrong? Why are you so scared? Are you having a nightmare?" Megan asked, moving toward her to offer some comfort. But Chloe just grabbed a pillow and threw it at her with all her strength. "Don't come near me!" Megan stopped, looking confused, while Sophie hugged her blanket tightly, her face pale with fear. They both thought Chloe was losing her mind. Only I knew the truth. Standing right beside Chloe's bed, getting closer to her, was the pale-faced, dark-eyed ghost messenger. Chloe continued to thrash and scream until dawn, when she finally fell into an exhausted silence. I thought I might finally be able to get some sleep, but just as I was closing my eyes, a bucket of ice-cold water was dumped over me, shocking me awake. Chloe stood before me, her hair a mess, and her eyes bloodshot, looking more frightening than any ghost. "Amelia, you better tell me the truth. Were you the one playing tricks on me last night?" I wiped the water from my face and looked at her. Seeing the dark circles under her eyes and the faint black aura forming on her forehead, my anger began to fade. "I told you not to touch money that you shouldn't, but you refused to listen. From now on, they will come for you every single night to collect the debt. Just try to keep the noise down so you don't disturb everyone else's sleep." Chloe's eyes narrowed as she caught the implication in my words. She questioned me sharply. "Amelia, do you know something about this? Was that person last night someone you sent to scare me? I'm telling you, don't think for a second that I'll be frightened by your childish, ghostly pranks." Even at this critical stage, Chloe was still completely delusional. I just shrugged, seeing no point in arguing with someone who was so clearly losing her grip on reality. The ghost messenger came 2 more times. Convinced that it was all an elaborate prank orchestrated by me, Chloe started hiding under her blanket at night, refusing to open her eyes no matter what happened. Unable to make contact with her, the ghost messenger eventually left in frustration. After he was gone for good, Chloe's arrogance returned. The next time she passed me in the dorm, she deliberately lowered her voice and sneered, "Amelia, I thought you were supposed to be so powerful. It turns out you're nothing special after all." I was left speechless. There is an old saying that applies even in the human world. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The ghost messenger had already come to collect the debt 3 times, and Chloe still refused to pay. He certainly would not be so polite on his next visit. Sure enough, within 3 days, the ghost messenger's punishment arrived. That day, during one of our classes, the bright sunny weather outside suddenly turned dark and overcast. A flock of enormous crows with unnervingly piercing red eyes appeared on the tree branches just outside the classroom window, staring directly inside. The entire scene was incredibly unsettling. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the room and the crows took flight, slamming themselves violently against the windows. The repeated banging quickly drew the attention of all the students. The teacher, annoyed by the disruption, tapped on the blackboard to regain everyone's focus, but before she could finish speaking, the classroom windows shattered with a deafening crash. Amidst the students' screams, the crows swarmed into the room. The classroom descended into chaos, but the panic quickly subsided as everyone realized the crows were not attacking people at random. Instead, they were all flying in a single, focused direction. At the center of this swirling vortex of blackbirds was Chloe. The crows were ferocious, tearing at her skin and clothes until she screamed in agony, but no one dared to move forward to help her. 5 minutes later, the crows dispersed as quickly as they had arrived. Chloe was left lying on the floor, covered in blood, with barely a patch of undamaged skin left on her body. All the students were terrified and unsure of what to do. Finally, the teacher, with trembling hands, managed to call for an ambulance. Chloe's injuries, while they looked horrific, turned out to be mostly superficial, and she regained consciousness a short time later in the hospital. She looked over and saw me sitting by her bedside with a cold, unreadable expression. Ignoring the pain she was in, she immediately ripped the IV needle from her arm and stumbled out of bed until she was kneeling on the floor in front of me, banging her head repeatedly on the linoleum. "Amelia, I was wrong! I'll give you back the necklace, I promise. Please, just save me." I held out my hand, telling her to give me the item first, but Chloe showed no sign of producing the necklace. She just continued to bow her head to the floor. I didn't want to waste any more time with her, so I asked her directly, "How much good luck did you use?" "Good luck." Chloe looked up, her expression one of genuine bewilderment. She didn't seem to be lying. I frowned and pressed on. "How much money have you gained recently?" "About $800,000, Chloe answered this question much more readily. "Then give me back the necklace and give me another $800,000, I said. "If you do that, maybe I can save you." Before I could even finish my sentence, Chloe's entire demeanor changed in an instant. She scrambled up from the floor, pointed a finger directly at my face, and began to curse at me. "Amelia, have you gone crazy? $800,000? Why don't you just go rob a bank? I'm telling you, if anything happens to me, I will haunt you for the rest of your life, even as a ghost." Seeing that she was not only yelling but was now looking for something to throw at me, I grabbed my bag and walked out of the room. It didn't matter to me. After all, I wasn't the one who was going to die. Besides, I had already searched through her belongings while she was unconscious and had confirmed that the necklace was not on her person. Combining this fact with her strange reaction, I began to suspect that someone else was manipulating Chloe from behind the scenes. Realizing the situation was far more serious than I had initially thought, I quickly called my family for help. The next morning, I saw a familiar figure waiting for me downstairs outside the dorm. It was Ethan, my childhood friend. Unlike my family, the Liu family's ancestors were celebrated as patriotic entrepreneurs. Ethan, being the only son in the 9th generation of the Liu family, not only possessed an incredible amount of natural good luck from birth, but had also been trained by his grandfather in various forms of divination and feng shui, making him something of a novice Taoist priest. I led him to a more secluded area on campus. Before I even had a chance to speak, Ethan gave me a playful smile. "Amelia, why are you taking me into the woods in the middle of the day?" I ignored his teasing and got straight to the matter at hand. "I originally just wanted to teach her a lesson and get my necklace back," I explained. "But I think this situation is much more complicated than I first realized." Ethan's playful expression immediately became serious. He pulled a file folder from his bag. "I got your message yesterday and had someone look into this overnight. Chloe comes from a poor family but has very expensive tastes. To fund her lifestyle, she was simultaneously dating 3 different men, and one of them seems very suspicious." I followed Ethan's gaze to a picture in the file. It was a man named Marcus, 39 years old and officially unemployed. This man had no known family and almost no social history, yet he consistently spent money lavishly. "I've already assigned someone to follow him," Ethan said. They'll contact us as soon as they find anything. To make communication easier, Ethan rented an apartment near our school. He would often invite me over for dinner under the pretense of sharing new information about the case. I knew his real intention was to help replenish my luck, as his presence had a positive effect on me. So I didn't refuse his invitations. From the moment I lost my protective charm, my own good luck had begun to slowly dissipate. Since my luck score had been at the maximum level, the initial effects were not very noticeable. But as more time passed, I gradually began to feel my energy levels dropping and a general sense of fatigue that I hadn't experienced before. Ethan's constitution was the complete opposite of mine, and simply being around him helped to compensate for my depleted luck. One evening, Ethan sent me another photo of a meal he had prepared, inviting me to his apartment for dinner. Just as I was getting ready to leave my dorm, Sophie blocked my path. She grabbed my arm tightly, her whole body trembling uncontrollably, and her words came out in a jumbled mess. "Amelia, please save me. I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to die. You have to save me." I had a strong feeling that whatever Sophie was about to say would be related to my missing necklace. I gripped her shoulders firmly, trying to force her to calm down and explain what was happening in a clear manner. Through her tears, Sophie confessed everything. Chloe had discovered that Sophie had cheated on an important exam. A few days ago, Chloe had confronted her and told her to find a way to steal my necklace. If she didn't, Chloe threatened to report her to the academic office for cheating. "Amelia, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I really didn't want to get expelled from school." I hadn't realized Sophie was involved in this at all, and my mind was in turmoil, trying to process this new information. I managed to say a few comforting words to her before rushing out of the dorm, needing to clear my head. The very next day, Sophie was found dead in the dormitory bathroom. The coroner's official report listed the cause of death as a sudden cardiac arrest, and the police quickly closed the case. The school administration simply issued a notice urging all students to pay more attention to their physical health. Everyone believed her death was a tragic accident, but Ethan and I knew it was something far more sinister. When Sophie's body was being carried out of the building, I started crying uncontrollably, begging the paramedics to let me see her one last time. The police officer, seeing how genuinely distraught I was, agreed to my request. I pulled Ethan with me as we approached the body. He gently pulled back the white sheet covering her, took one brief look, and his face changed drastically. After the crowd had dispersed, Ethan spoke to me in a grave tone. "Amelia, she was used as a scapegoat. Logically, a person who has recently died should still have some residual good luck in their body. But when I looked at her, her forehead was completely pale, and her hands were withered. She died because her good luck was completely and utterly drained from her. This method of stealing luck is incredibly dark and dangerous. Those whose luck is stolen in this manner cannot enter the normal cycle of reincarnation." I was confused. An ordinary person's good luck score is usually around 60 or 70. The process of stealing luck is not only risky, but also creates a tremendous amount of negative karma for the person performing it. Only someone who is exceptionally greedy and desperate for unearned gain would take such a risk. "Of course," Ethan added. "There is another possibility. The person we are dealing with might be like you, born with a natural deficit of good luck and forced to steal it from others just to survive." "No," Ethan interrupted my train of thought, his expression grim. "It's also possible that the other party isn't human at all. Ghosts are not supposed to be able to remain in the human world for long periods. However, if they manage to absorb a large amount of good luck, they can assume an appearance that is indistinguishable from an ordinary person, and they can even evade capture by the ghost messengers." "So you're saying the person we're after could be a ghost who has escaped from the ghost world?" I asked. Ethan nodded. "We cannot rule out that possibility." To prevent anyone else from being harmed, I asked Ethan for some of his soul-calling incense and summoned the ghost messenger that very night. When the messenger heard that he had been tricked, he became so furious, his dark eyes seemed to bulge from their sockets. He immediately opened his ghostly ledger to check the records. After double-checking the entries, he tilted his head in confusion and muttered, "This is very strange. The person who used the good luck was indeed Chloe, but the charms transaction was tied to Sophie's birth date." The ghost messenger was clearly puzzled by this and said He would have to return to the ghost world to report to the Ghost King and consult the reversal mirror before he could make a final decision. The university had been troubled by a series of strange events recently. First, Chloe was attacked by a flock of crows, and then Sophie died suddenly. Although the school's administration broadcast daily announcements promoting science and rejecting superstition, a palpable sense of fear and unease had spread throughout the entire student body and faculty. Some teachers even formally suggested to the administration that they should invite a Taoist priest to perform a cleansing ritual to ward off evil, but this suggestion was, of course, rejected. However, due to the mounting public pressure, the university ultimately decided to suspend all classes for a week, urging everyone to stay in their dormitories and minimize any unnecessary outings. On the same day that the school announced the suspension of classes, Chloe returned to the dorm. Her complexion was rosy and she looked completely recovered from her ordeal. There wasn't even a single scar left on her body from the crow attack. Seeing me staring at her, Chloe immediately smirked in triumph. "Amelia, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. Not only am I perfectly fine, but I'm doing better than ever now." As she spoke, she flaunted a set of car keys in her hand. Megan's eyes lit up at the sight, and she quickly went over to Chloe to shower her with compliments. I just gave her a cold look, unwilling to waste my breath speaking to her. I used to think that Chloe was merely vain and materialistic, but I never imagined she could be so malicious and cold-blooded. For her own selfish desires, she had nonchalantly sacrificed the life of a roommate and felt completely justified in profiting from it. Before this, Chloe's actions were annoying, but her sins were not severe enough to warrant death. If the ghost world had forcefully taken her life, they themselves would have been punished by the heavens. But now, Chloe had a human life on her hands. Not even the king of hell himself could save her now. The Ghost King's punishment came swiftly. That night, I was drifting in a state between sleep and wakefulness when a deep chill permeated my body, freezing me fully awake. I opened my eyes, and the sight before me almost made me scream. The entire dormitory was bathed in an eerie, pulsating red glow. A woman dressed in white, with half of her face rotted away and crawling with maggots, was wandering aimlessly around the room. Trailing behind her was a small ghost child in a red bib, with a single ponytail and completely black eyes with no pupils. The woman saw me sit up in my bed and floated toward me with the little ghost, carefully sniffing the air around me. I was so terrified I held my breath, afraid to make a sound. Seeing that I was not the person she was looking for, the female ghost passed directly through my body. The bone-chilling cold that washed over me made my teeth chatter, but I found I couldn't make a sound. I had been magically silenced, and my limbs were completely paralyzed. All I could do was watch helplessly as the vengeful mother and child approached Chloe's bed. Chloe was still fast asleep. The woman extended her long, sharp nails and fiercely raked them across Chloe's face. "Ah!" Chloe screamed, blood instantly flowing from the deep scratches on her cheek down to her neck. She looked up at the horrifying scene before her and, ignoring her pain, shrieked, "Ghost! There's a ghost! Help me!" Chloe clutched her bleeding face and scrambled to open the dorm room door, but no matter how hard she pulled and pushed, the door wouldn't budge. The small ghost child standing behind the woman grinned, its mouth a black, empty void, and let out a cackling laugh as it floated towards Chloe. The little ghost landed on her back, tugged at her hair, and then took a large bite out of her neck. Chloe couldn't make a sound now. Her hands clawed desperately at the door, and her legs thrashed wildly, her entire body contorted in a grotesque position. The female ghost leaned in close to Chloe, her voice piercing and filled with a burning rage. "You bitch! You tricked my good luck away from me?" Some vengeful ghosts, consumed by an overwhelming amount of resentment, cannot enter the cycle of reincarnation. However, recognizing that many of these ghosts had lived tragic lives and suffered horrible deaths, the Ghost King granted them a special form of mercy. These vengeful ghosts could earn good luck points by assisting ghost messengers with their cases. On the 15th of every month, at midnight, when the gates of the underworld opened, the ghost messengers would come to the human world to trade with those who needed to purchase good luck. Once the vengeful ghosts had accumulated enough money from these transactions, they could go to the purification pool in the ghost world to wash away their resentment and finally be reborn. Chloe had used an immense amount of this vengeful ghost's hard-earned luck, but had refused to pay the debt. Now, the mother and child wanted to tear her to shreds. The female ghost grabbed Chloe by her hair and lifted her off the ground while the little ghost clapped its hands and cheered. Just as the ghost's dark, bluish hands were about to plunge into Chloe's chest and rip out her heart, a brilliant white light flashed from Chloe's body. The vengeful mother and child let out a horrifying shriek as they were blasted backward by an invisible force. The eerie red glow that had filled the dormitory instantly vanished. The barrier on the door shattered, and Chloe was thrown to the floor, covered in blood. Inside the room, Megan's deep, regular snores resumed. I felt the paralysis leave my throat. I coughed, realizing my voice had returned. I quickly called Ethan and told him to come and pick me up immediately. Hearing his voice on the other end say, "Amelia, wait for me, I'll be right there," I finally let out a long sigh of relief. My body went limp and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was in Ethan's rental apartment. He was sitting nervously by my bed, watching over me. Seeing me wake up, he quickly handed me a cup of warm water. "Amelia, you're finally awake. When I got to your dorm, your face was so pale and your body was freezing cold. You scared me half to death." Ethan even wiped at the corner of his eye as he spoke. I wasn't in the mood for an emotional reunion. I recounted everything that had happened the previous night in a rush. When I mentioned the bright white light that had suddenly appeared on Chloe, Ethan reached into his bag and took out a white paper charm, handing it to me. "Amelia, is this what you're talking about? I found it on Chloe." I took the charm from him. It felt strange. Normal protective charms are usually made of yellow paper, but this one had a white background with black writing. It looked somewhat like a funeral elegy, the kind written for the dead. Ethan must have guessed what I was thinking, as he patiently explained, "This is the legendary ghost charm. I saw one in my grandfather's study once. This type of charm can supposedly only be created by Taoist priests who die and become vengeful ghosts themselves. But Taoists generally believe in the heavenly way and have the ability to foresee fate, so it's very rare for them to die unjustly and become a vengeful ghost. This ghost charm hasn't been seen for 300 years, according to the books. I can't believe it showed up on Chloe." Hearing this, I suddenly remembered another strange detail. Didn't Chloe get attacked by all those crows? But when she came back to the dorm, she didn't have a single scar on her. Ethan put the ghost charm away and sighed softly. Even if this ghost has incredible powers, it can't change things that have already happened. Wounds don't just disappear on their own. I'm afraid someone else is going to be very unlucky. Chloe mysteriously disappeared after being attacked by the vengeful mother and child that night. Megan woke up the next morning to find both of her roommates gone and bloodstains all over the dormitory floor. Terrified, she quickly called the police. When the police called me to ask about the situation, I was still asleep, so Ethan answered the phone for me. He simply told them that I hadn't been feeling well, that he had picked me up from the dorm that morning, and that I was now resting at his place. There were surveillance cameras in the dormitory hallway, and the dorm manager had records of me leaving with him, so after the police confirmed his story, they didn't bother us again. 3 days later, I went back to the dorm to pick up some clean clothes. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Megan. She was wearing a mask and a hat, her entire body covered except for her bloodshot eyes. Her appearance startled me, and I was about to ask her what was wrong, but she suddenly ripped off her heavy coat, took off her hat and mask, and lunged toward me. "Amelia, save me. I know you have abilities. Please, for the sake of us being roommates, you can't just leave me here to die." Megan's body was covered in dense, horrifying scars. The most chilling were the bloody gashes on her face, winding from her eyebrows all the way down to her chin. Seeing that I was slow to respond, she became frantic and suddenly screamed in a hoarse voice, "Now Sophie is dead and I look like this. Amelia, if you leave me to die, you'll be the next one." I had felt a small amount of pity for Megan, but hearing her threaten me now, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. She could barely save herself, and she was trying to intimidate me. I hardened my expression and said to her slowly and deliberately, "Megan, everything in this world is governed by cause and effect. I never accepted any favors from Chloe, so naturally I have no reason to be afraid of being implicated by her actions. But you were greedy, and you accepted something that was tainted. This is your karma. You'll just have to deal with it." With that, I stepped past her, grabbed a few items of clothing from my closet, and turned to leave. With the clue of the ghost charm and the immense resources of my family, we quickly uncovered Marcus's past and his current whereabouts. Ethan called his grandfather, who had retired and was traveling around the country, telling him that I had attracted some unclean entities and that he needed to come back immediately. Ethan's grandfather teased him for a bit over the phone, before his tone suddenly changed. He told us not to act rashly for the next 2 days and to wait for him to return before we did anything. For me, a person with a naturally weak constitution, and Ethan, a self-described novice Taoist, to confront a powerful, vengeful ghost head-on would be foolish and dangerous. Even if Ethan's grandfather hadn't warned us, we had no intention of going alone. Since there had been a series of disturbing incidents in our dormitory, my academic advisor graciously granted me a month-long leave of absence to go home and rest. Ethan and I discussed the situation and decided it would be best for me to move back home. It would be safer with more people around, and we could work on a plan to get my protective charm back once his grandfather returned. Just as we had finished packing our bags and were about to leave, two uninvited guests blocked our way. Marcus was wearing a white suit and carrying a folding fan, looking very refined, but his narrow, triangular eyes were filled with a shrewd and calculating light. Chloe, dressed in a provocative outfit, was clinging to his arm. She spoke in a clipped, mocking voice. "Well, well, where are you two off to in such a hurry?" Ethan immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me from them, his gaze sharp as he stared at Marcus. "Marcus, I know what you want. Let Amelia go, and I'll go with you." Marcus didn't say anything, but Chloe couldn't hold back her scorn. She scoffed and said, "Who do you think you are, trying to bargain with us? I'm telling you, neither of you is getting away today." "Shut up!" Marcus raised his hand and slapped Chloe across the face. He then turned back to Ethan with a friendly, almost pleasant smile. "Of course. As long as young Master Ethan cooperates, I won't make things difficult for this little girl." "No, no, Ethan can't go." I tried to protest, but I realized that Ethan had discreetly cast a spell on me, silencing me. All I could do was shake my head desperately at him. He squeezed my hands and gently comforted me. "Amelia, listen to me. You can't go to a place with such extreme yin energy." I watched helplessly as Ethan got into the car with them, completely unable to do anything to stop it. As the car's exhaust fumes finally dissipated, I found that I could speak again. I quickly pulled out my phone to call Ethan's grandfather, but as I did, I unexpectedly found a small porcelain bottle in my pocket. It was the soul-calling incense. Inside the car, Chloe rubbed her reddened cheek, looking slightly wronged as she whined to Marcus. "Brother Marcus, you hit me so hard just now. You always wanted that little brat Amelia, so why did you let her go so easily?" "You idiot," Marcus said. "Amelia is a short-lived person with a naturally depleted amount of good luck. She's completely useless to me." Chloe was instantly confused. Then why did you make me steal her necklace in the first place?" "You told me that she regularly gives money to some kind of shadow at midnight on the 15th of every month," Marcus explained. "From that, I guessed that she was someone with depleted good luck. Everything in this world requires a balance between yin and yang. Someone with extremely bad luck is often found near someone with exceptionally good luck." "So, Brother Marcus, your target was Ethan from the very beginning?" Chloe felt a pang of resentment. If Marcus's target had been Ethan all along, why had he made her go through such a huge and complicated detour, causing her to suffer so much, and even leading to the deaths of two of her roommates? Although she had helped Marcus trick other girls in the past to absorb their good luck, it had never before involved taking lives. Thinking about how her previously peaceful life had been thrown into such complete chaos, Chloe felt a rare and unfamiliar pang of regret. Marcus seemed to see through her thoughts and sneered. "It's because you're useless. What kind of garbage did you find for me? They couldn't replenish much of my good luck and only ended up bringing me more trouble." He could tell that Ethan possessed some real power. If he hadn't just expended so much of his own energy dealing with that vengeful mother and child for Chloe, an act that had injured his vital energy, he wouldn't have had to take such a risk and go after Ethan so hastily. Chloe knew she was in the wrong, so she hunched her shoulders and said nothing more. The car drove to a mass grave on the outskirts of the city. Chloe looked at the scattered and decaying tombstones and felt the hair on her arm stand on end. She wrapped her jacket tightly around herself and trembled as she followed Marcus out of the car. Ethan got out of the back seat, removed the black blindfold from his eyes, and snorted. You certainly know how to pick a location. This humble Taoist would also prefer to find a beautiful place to dine, but unfortunately, young Master Ethan's constitution is quite special. So you will have to be buried here, Marcus said. Ethan's natural good luck was so powerful that even a normal ghost messenger would have difficulty handling it, let alone Marcus, a ghost who had recently lost a significant amount of his vital energy. Only in a place with such extreme yin energy could he hope to suppress Ethan's abundant good luck. Ethan clicked his tongue impatiently. You're a very talkative demon Taoist. We don't know who's going to win this fight yet. Big words for such a young punk. Now just die. If I consume you, not even the ghost messenger will be able to touch me, Marcus said. He then transformed into his true form, a skeletal figure dressed in tattered Taoist robes, and lunged at Ethan. Ethan took off the peachwood beads from his wrist and quickly began chanting a spell. The two opposing forces were locked in a stalemate, but after only a few seconds, Ethan's prayer beads shattered, scattering across the ground. He stumbled backward and fell to the ground and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Marcus looked down at Ethan's disheveled state and sneered. Just a young kid and you wanted to challenge me? With that, he extended his skeletal claw, ready to absorb Ethan's good luck. In that critical moment, a peachwood sword came flying through the air, aimed directly at Marcus's heart. Marcus narrowly dodged the attack, but the sword still grazed his robe. I stepped forward and quickly helped the injured Ethan to his feet, nervously checking his injuries. Ethan's grandfather walked over unhurriedly, glanced at Ethan casually, and said in an indifferent tone, Amelia, you don't need to worry about him. This kid has a strong life force. Ethan also nodded in agreement. I'm fine. The most important thing is that Amelia's protective charm is still on that ghost Taoist. Grandpa, you have to quickly find a way to get rid of this demon. You ungrateful brat. Aren't you afraid of your old grandpa breaking his bones out here? Ethan's grandfather was so angry his beard bristled and his eyes bulged. If Ethan hadn't been injured, he would have picked up something right then and there to hit him with. Marcus saw that we were completely ignoring him, chatting amongst ourselves. So he began to gather a ball of ghostly energy in his palm, planning a sneak attack. Suddenly, a strong gust of cold wind began to blow and sand and stones flew everywhere. The ghost messenger slowly emerged from the swirling mist. Marcus realized something was wrong and was about to try and escape, but he was suddenly bound tightly by soul-binding chains that seemed to come from all directions. The ghost messenger held the chains and roared, You demon Taoist! You've been hiding for so many years and have harmed so many lives. Come with me immediately to receive the Ghost King's punishment. Seeing that Marcus had been caught by the ghost messenger, Chloe, who was terrified and weak-kneed, stumbled to her feet and tried to run back to the car. But as soon as she moved, she was spotted by several other evil spirits that had gathered. Without Marcus's protection, the sinful Chloe was quickly swarmed and devoured by the resentful spirits. Seeing that the situation had turned against him, Marcus suddenly let out a loud, maniacal laugh. He fiercely broke free from the soul-binding chains and took my necklace out from his bag. He glared at Ethan with pure hatred and said, Kid, you've ruined my path to immortality. Now I'm taking this girl with me to be buried. With that, he gathered a ball of eerie blue ghost fire in his hand and instantly turned my protective charm to ash. The ghost messenger raised his soul-devouring whip high into the air and shattered Marcus's already broken body into pieces. David watched as the fragments of the charm scattered from the sky, his eyes turning bloodshot. He clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white, wishing he could rush over and utterly destroy what was left of Marcus. Ethan, I instinctively grabbed his arm. He's already been trapped by the ghost messenger. He will receive his punishment back in the ghost world. Why would you want to commit murder now? Ethan's body was stiff. After a long moment, he slowly turned his head to look at me, his voice trembling as he spoke. Amelia, without that charm, you're going to die. Even though my own life was on the line, I found myself calmer than anyone else in that moment. No, there must be another way, I said, forcing a relaxed smile onto my face. Worst case scenario, I'll just have to be inseparable from you for the rest of my life. You can be my personal portable power bank, always ready to replenish my good luck whenever I need it. After we returned home, I fell seriously ill. I lay in a hospital bed for 3 full days before I slowly regained consciousness. Seeing my parents' worried and exhausted faces by my bedside, my eyes teared up and I wanted to cry out all the anxiety and fear that I had been holding in for the past few days. You child, you really scared us to death, my mother sobbed, her voice heartbroken. I only have you. If anything had happened to you, how would your old father and I have continued to live? My dad was also sniffling and wiping away tears beside her. Their alternating cries actually made my own feelings of guilt start to fade. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that I hadn't involved them in the situation earlier. With their fragile emotional states, they probably would have been traumatized. My parents' crying gradually subsided. I was wondering how I was going to tell them about my protective charm being destroyed when Ethan and his grandfather walked into the room carrying a large bouquet of flowers. The moment Ethan saw my parents, he bowed deeply, his expression incredibly serious. Uncle, Auntie, I am so sorry. I didn't take good care of Amelia, and her protective charm was destroyed. But please don't worry, I will take full responsibility. At his words, everyone in the room froze. My mind was full of questions. I wanted to rush over and grab Ethan by the collar and ask him exactly how he planned to take responsibility. My poor daughter. I can't live anymore. My mother's wail was the first thing to break the stunned silence. My dad also swayed on his feet, looking as if he was about to faint. Ethan's grandfather rapped his cane on the floor and then slapped the back of Ethan's head. What are you just staring at? Hurry up and explain yourself properly. Ethan rubbed his head sheepishly and said meekly, Uncle, Auntie, please calm down and let me finish. Over the past 2 days, my grandpa and I have searched through all the ancient books at our home, and we found a method to transfer my excess good luck to another person. This means that Amelia can live a normal life, just like anyone else from now on. My parents instantly stopped crying. Overjoyed, they rushed to my bedside and embraced me. I was completely overwhelmed by this fantastic news, numbly letting them hug me, unable to fully process what it meant for a long time. After my month-long leave of absence was over, I returned to my familiar school. My academic advisor had thoughtfully arranged for me to be placed in a new dormitory. My new roommates were not particularly close to me. After all, the incident in my old dorm, with one death, one serious injury, and one person missing, was widely known across campus. As the only survivor of that ordeal, I naturally couldn't escape the gossip and speculation. The story had spread even more wildly online, and a reporter who specialized in supernatural events had even found me, wanting to do a feature story on what had happened. Recalling the events of the past few months, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Good deeds are rewarded, and evil deeds are punished. Blessings and misfortunes are often intertwined. Those who sow a particular cause will inevitably reap the consequences. Looking at the nearly 200,000 viewers tuned into the live stream, I managed a faint smile, and under the reporter's expectant gaze, calmly said, "It was all just a series of coincidences. There are no such things as supernatural events." Ignoring the disappointed and angry comments flooding the chat from the online viewers, my eyes suddenly turned cold. I looked directly into the camera and said quietly, "Mind your own business and don't do anything that would bring you shame. If you do that, you won't ever have to fear a ghost knocking on your door."